Well, man, I'm fired up. We are going to straight up dive right into it today because we got a lot of ground to cover. Kind of our goal with the locker room is to present you once a month with somebody great, a friend of ours, a friend of the Brave group or a personal buddy, whatever it might be. And today is an absolute doozy. So I just need you to be ready. He's got kind of a loose fitting, good looking shirt on. I think he's in the zone. So I'm not going to mess around at all. I'm going to make this introduction because I need him to start talking. Okay. Joey Odom is our guest in the locker room today. Joey jumped on me in August of 2000, and we have been covenant friends ever since. Since that time, he has become a shampoo connoisseur. He's a knapsack carrying, speed boot wearing, jean short assassin. He bakes covenant cupcakes and he'll cook you on the hoops court, but his specialty is man-sized nachos. He's a father to a gorgeous daughter and a son with an effortless six-pack. He's a husband to a 4'11" spicy Italiana who loves hard-boiled eggs. He's an author. He's a podcaster. He's an MC. He's a digital expert. He's a real estate tycoon and is the best first impression in North America. He loves fiercely and cries appropriately. His 10-minute back massage will change your spinal alignment and make your day. I hope you're ready because he is the inventor of kicking dick. Fellas, ladies, would you get loud? Can I see a little Arsenio for the one and only Joseph Philip Odom? Welcome to the locker room, Joe.
Unbelievable. Let's kick some dick. There's no alternative other than kicking dick after that introduction. There's just nothing you can do other than kick dick.
Joey's the best intro guy in the game. That was an elementary effort to honor him in that. And those are just the first facts I thought of right now. That the intro could have gone on for an hour, but Joey, I love you. Thanks for joining us today. What's your opening statement to a bunch of people that are excited to be in the locker room today?
I really am. That was absolutely fantastic. And my opening statement here is is probably this whole, maybe a little Russell Westbrook is why not? I think about this idea of why not. And so I think about all the areas in our lives that we have an opportunity for every day. So why not? Why would your relationship with your wife not be the greatest it's ever been starting today? What if the best days of your marriage are ahead of you? Why wouldn't you get promotion? Why not? Why not you? Why would you not get fit? Why would you not? I'm 45 in the best shape of my life. Chris 45 in the best shape of his life. Why would you not be at 45? Why would you not continue to get better? So that is one thing. That's just Chris Hart's rub off on everybody he's with. But that is something that I truly, deeply believe because I think we all can experience this, and I'm experiencing it in my life. So that would be the first one, is that whole idea of why not?
Yeah.
We tend to fatalize sometimes versus saying what if it's incredible? What if the life we have in front of us is incredible? So that's how I would just kick off this whole general idea on everything we're about to say, is just that basic idea. Why not? Why not me?
Okay, I'm going to couple it with one other big boy statement. Joey came out swinging and said, why not? And so then I would add to that, what if we also said, what's on the line?
Yeah.
Right? Let's be so clear about what's on the line in our lives. Joey, I mentioned your family, as great a family as there is, and I want to get into family here in a minute. But they're on the line, right? The call of God is on the line, right? So all of that being said, that kind of becomes this baseline. And then I'm gonna steal exactly what you said, which is, okay, this is what's on the line. So why not be the best in the world? Why not make it bigger than we could possibly imagine? Why not shake up the industry? Because that's where we get to live. You like that?
Yep. Love it.
Okay. I'm going to ask Joey some questions. This is a fast-paced format. We've got 16 minutes to cover a few different topics. Okay. I'm going to start with just a meatball. Joey, you have been traveling the country talking about digital thorns. Okay. Joey is an expert, has been in this industry for a good while now, and talking about the power of having a phone discipline with the phone, all the stuff. I won't say anything else because you're so good at this, but you're talking to a bunch of get after it people. When we start talking about these digital thorns, man, can you speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, but this goes to when we talk about Jesus being the goat. I mean, I think we know that Jesus is the goat. So he talked 2,000 years ago in the parable of the sower to a bunch of farmers. And that same message, I think, applies to us today. He spoke about phones 2,000 years ago in the parable of the sower. The parable of the sower, quick synopsis: a farmer goes and scatters his seed in 4 types of soils. And Jesus talks about one of those. He talks about the thorns. And he said the thorns choke out the seed so that it doesn't produce fruit. So, in quick note, like all of us, the reason you're on this call today, the reason you are high performing, the reason you have a job, the reason why you're married is to produce fruit. That's the goal. Like the Bible talks about fruitfulness and fruit 300 times. So all of our goal is to live a fruitful life. So Jesus identifies for us the threat. He says, hey, here's the thing that's going to choke it out, and it's the thorns. And he says the thorns represent 3 things. It represents the worries of life, the pleasures of life, and the deceitfulness of wealth. And again, this was timeless. 2,000 years ago, this made sense to them. But specifically for our application today, this is where it gets amazing. This is why we need to read our Bibles. So the worries of life, Jesus says, are thorns that choke out the seed in our lives and make it unfruitful. The worries of life sounds a lot like me to waking up in the morning and the first thing you do is check your email before you get in the Word. The worries of life sounds a lot like me to scrolling to scrolling Twitter and seeing all the garbage out there and going through the comment section, or scrolling through the news feed, and all of a sudden we get consumed with the worries of life. And what does it do? It chokes out the seed in our lives, making it unfruitful. That's worries of life. Pleasures of life, also called the desires for other things. Other translations say that. So yes, it could be porn. Yes, it could be online gambling, or it could just be simple distraction that lives in our phone. Or it could just be our sons trying to talk to us, and we're just kind of glancing at our phones, looking at other things, choking out the fruitfulness of that relationship. And then the deceitfulness of wealth is the comparison that lives in our social media feeds. So we're looking at, somebody, you may be looking at what you have. You may be on vacation with your family in Tampa, and then you see somebody on vacation in Tahiti, and all of a sudden you think your vacation in Tampa kind of sucks. So it's the lies that wealth tells you, the deceitfulness of wealth, not the wealth, but the deceitfulness of wealth. So the embodiment of those 3 things lives in our phones, and they have the potential to choke out all the seed we have the fruit that we have in our lives. So that's not a demonization of phone. That's not a demonization of technology. We love those things. They do great things for us. But if we are not constantly pruning back those things in our lives, if we are not constantly setting up structures in our lives where we're getting in the Word before we get in our phone in the morning, if we're not setting up structures in our lives where we have maybe the potential to scroll on our phones instead of being engaged on a date night with our spouse, that's going to choke out the fruit in our marriage. If we are more responsive to our phones than we are to our child's voice, that has the potential to choke out all those things in our lives. So again, love the phone, love what it does for me. Also recognizing that this thing has the potential to very slowly and insidiously choke out all the good things we want in our lives. And that's just as a quick kind of a period on this one. Choking, what's interesting about the way that Jesus said it, yes, it kills, but choking's not an instant death. It happens slowly. So what can happen in our lives is we allow this thing to creep into our lives a little bit without us noticing. And then all of a sudden we're sitting for 30 minutes in the toilet looking at our phone, good or bad things, but it's because we've allowed this slowly to creep into our lives, and it's slowly, without us even noticing, is choking out all the good things we want in our lives. And this presents us with an unbelievable opportunity. We now know the problem. So let's prune back these thorns every single day so that we can produce fruit in the areas of our lives that are most important to us.
Wow. I did get a mental picture, and I could feel when my legs fall asleep because I have been on the toilet too long scrolling, and that is the fruit. That is the proof of too long. Joey, there's a great verse, and it says that we're limited by our own affections.
Yeah.
And what everything I hear you saying is the reality of like intentionally putting limitations on us. Like this life that God's created is this infinite life, an infinite creator, right? And so, but then what we're doing, and you're so great at communicating this, is we are allowing ourselves to be limited by something that we're putting in place of or in front of, not just like replacing God, but right in front of, right? Yeah. And that's that thorn, that's that choking that's taking place.
Yeah.
And anything Guys, anything that becomes a limitation, we have to recognize and violently do something about it.
I like to think of when my son Harrison, who's almost 18, when he was younger, he did Legos a ton. And I always thought about you would get these 1,000-piece Legos, and then you would have the instruction manual, and it would show you how to use that. And I never once thought when I looked at this instruction manual that these producers of Legos were just trying to hold me back. How dare they tell me how I'm supposed to build these Legos, right? So the Word of God is like saying, hey, here's how the designer of your life designed you to live. That is not restrictive. That is not limiting. That is so you can live in fullness and be the thing that the designer has created you to be. That is wonderful news.
Gosh, that's good. Okay, I told you we're gonna go fast pace. Write down what Joey says. It will be worth your pen ink. Joey, you are an unreal friend. You and I have been friends for 26 years. When people get around you, you are contagious. Okay, so this is going to dovetail into being our biggest and best self, but I want to start by maybe just some of your initial thoughts on what it really looks like to be a great friend, to have covenant friendships where you feel like you're invincible. You've been that for me a lot, but speak to that a little bit. You're so good with people. What's that mean to you? How do we get better at the people game that we have to benefit from?
I think there are a couple ways. Like one, when I walk into a room, I recognize that probably everybody there, unless Chris Hart's there, unless Mark Efron's there, everybody there is full of insecurity in that moment. And if you can recognize that, then it gives you this amazing opportunity to go up to them and disarm them, make them feel secure. And we all know this. What you put out in the world, you just receive it back. You just look in a mirror at the person you act like when you're in social situations. So you can go in with a bunch of confidence, and you can do it. You can weaponize that. You can make it arrogant. You can make people feel less than. But at that point, you're just going to be isolated yourself. So you have this opportunity to make people feel really comfortable and really listened to, and you begin to receive that back. So that's one way I go into it, is just recognize everybody in that room is insecure. You have the ability to make them feel bigger, and when you do, then everybody will rise together. The second thing on just friendship and covenant friendship, it gets as we get older. I've read some articles on this. Like as we get older, it gets more and more difficult to create adult friendships. And the key to building those adult friendships begins with looking for overlap in your life. So I have a couple different things. One thing I do, like I have set up like very specific structures in place. Chris, you and I have a 15-minute call every day. So I'm sorry, every hour. No, we have a 15-minute call every week, and that follows a very specific structure. We call the triple S. One, you start out with a story, then we tell something that's silly. The silly would be something like a big dream we're having that maybe it's so silly you wouldn't say it to anybody else. And then third is a secret. So that would be confession. It could be a big thing, it could be a small thing, but just it's such a healthy practice to be in confession with somebody else. We don't do any small talk, very intentionally. There's no time for that. We hit it for 15 minutes. Sometimes that 15 turns into 30, but the hallmark, I believe, of a close friendship is how short your phone conversations can be. You don't have to catch up every time because you're doing it on the regular. I talk with my brother basically every day. I have a call with my friend Mike Sladich regularly. I have a call with my friend Brooke regularly. So you have these calendar. We all know we will obey our calendar, so let's put these things on the calendar. We do those things. But back to the overlap, those in-person, those embodied relationships, find those people in your life who you have some natural overlap with. One of my best friends in Knoxville is a guy named Peter Brown. His son and my son play tennis together. So we're going to naturally, in the spring, we're going to see each other twice a week anyway. That makes it really, really easy. Our wives really like each other. Our kids are in similar grades. So you have those natural overlaps. And then you can begin to take a little bit of boldness with them, start initiating something on the regular. And then even when you start getting into those, and then obviously the biggest overlap, I believe, like have that alignment spiritually where you know you're going to be able to go deep. Initiate a little bit. Hey, can I talk to you about something? Can I have some confession with you right now? That kind of stuff's really important. So I think finding that overlap is super important, and then beginning to get things regularly on your calendar. So because you will obey your calendar, which all begins back to that beginning why we do this. Why? Because we know embodied relationships. We know closeness has a massive impact on our well-being. There's a statistic that says a 30-minute interaction once a week with a friend is the happiness equivalent to getting a $100,000 annual raise.
Whoa.
Happiness equivalent. 30 minutes a week with a close friend is that. The last thing I'll say in this is I would encourage all of us, this is me looking in a mirror, to continue to level up our embodiment in friendships. And here's what I mean by that, is if you were going to send a text to a friend, instead of sending a text, send a voice memo. If you're going to send a voice memo, give them a call. If you're going to do a call, do a FaceTime. If you're going to FaceTime and you happen to live in the same town, get together with them in person. So let's continue to level up our embodiment as well.
Wow. Come on, Joey. You're on fire, buddy. I'll tell you this. I think it's fascinating just to watch you actually do that. And what I heard you say is there's a protection mechanism that we have to have in this. If it's on the calendar, I'll do it, right? If it's not, I will go to the next thing. There is an email I can respond to. There's a call I can make. But I'll just encourage the guys with this. Of the 50 to 100 phone calls and meetings that maybe I have or you have every week, my SSS call with Joey is top 3 every week because it's so on purpose. It was funny that the first time we did that, Joey, it was my turn to tell a secret. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm 45 and I'm still kind of thinking about doing some steroids. What do you think, Joey? You know what I mean? And you're like, bro,
That's amazing.
think through it. It was great. But it's funny to be able just to have a guaranteed outlet. Man, I'm thinking this and I have a place to share this is so powerful.
I've had this, I don't know if this is a good thought or not. I was having this thought yesterday. I was reading an article on AI and I was thinking about things that are AI proof and things that will never get disrupted by AI. And one of those, and hear me out because I've not really thought this through, which is actually kind of a perfect example of this, is one thing that's AI proof is bad ideas. And because what I do, you saying, should I take steroids at 45 is a bad idea. So what's AI proof about that is like you came to me with it and we just kind of refined it together. Like that's one of the beauties that AI can't quite replicate for us is being able to craft and take the nuance of a conversation and hear the tone in the voice and me understand why that's interesting to you. And then let's kind of like banter it around together and bat it around together until you get to something that's so deeply held because you've had a conversation with somebody who's like you and understands you and empathizes with you and loves you and trusts you. And then we can kind of craft that into something that is actionable. And so it's like taking those, we always want these perfect things and we're unwilling to go to a vulnerable place or be honest with something when that's really, when we come from insecurity and we can kind of shape and mold something, that's when it really gets deeply embedded because we know we've wrestled with it. You know what I mean?
Heck yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to open it up for questions in about 5 minutes. So think about it. You can throw them in the chat. Be ready. Come at Joey with some good stuff. He'll give you a great response. Joey, kind of 2 things I want to make sure we hit is 1, I mentioned in the intro, you're as good a first impression as there is. And you and I talked about this recently. This is a fresh topic for us. But the kind of the balance or the rhythm of saying, I'm going to be my biggest, like most impressive, most ridiculous, most memorable self. And I also need to like somehow formulate and fit that into what monetizes and, like for me, be good on a coaching call or do a big real estate deal. The things that we kind of have to sometimes feel like we're fitting into. Yeah. I know we're processing this just because you and I just rolled it out together, but speak to kind of your initial thought process on this because it's something to be the most of you, but then also finding a real fit for that in the things that are expected of you, maybe in the business world.
I think I've been thinking about this a bunch. I left an event this weekend where you and Ryan Llewellyn were there, and it was an intentional fatherhood retreat. And I was MC and I hosted the conference, and I left there thinking like that's who I'm meant to be. Like that's what I do. That's who I am. Like who I was on stage is exactly who I am, my core. And it was this recognition that over the last 25 years of working, of a first job where you're trying to prove yourself, of a second job where you're kind of living in success, of a third venture where you're kind of building something new, that I think again, this is kind of hypothesis mode right now, but I think that so much of our professional lives, we are at war with authenticity. That we are at war because everything we do is towards something else, to the service of something else, proving myself so that I can get a promotion, living in success and having to replicate that over again, building something from scratch. And if we can somehow find that essence of ourselves, like that's the dream, is that when you find as Chris, I look at you, like you in coaching, this is the great, and y'all, here's what you need to know about Chris. There were two types of women at Oral Roberts University. those who loved Chris and those who hated Chris until he gave them the time of day, and then they became women that loved Chris. They loved him. So Chris was just these big golden locks, this big barrel chest. And what Chris has become is all the greatness of Chris, all the greatness with wisdom and humility. And it's a beautiful thing to watch you operate, Chris, because you are living. And I think if I were to say, like, who's the most authentic person, who has the most alignment of anybody I know in my life, the alignment of authenticity between who they are and what they do, it would be you. And y'all, if we can fight into that, if we can battle towards our authenticity in what we're doing, that's the dream. And paradoxically, that's going to be the thing that makes us most successful in the meantime. So candidly, like, this is what I'm really battling through right now. I'm writing a book right now. So how do I make sure I'm not just some douchebag who's writing a bunch of ideas versus, like, how can I be like everything I am in that? Not just writing ideas, but like the essence of who I am showing up on the pages. If you're hosting a podcast or something like that, how can you not become some caricaturized version of yourself, but the truest version, the truest authentic version of yourself? Because when those two things are in alignment, I think that's St. Irenaeus says the glory of God is man fully alive. That's when we start to experience the glory of God, because we are fully alive, being who we are, merely using our jobs as a vehicle to be who we are, not being not the end goal itself is the thing that we do.
Wow. Come on. Okay. Couple questions pouring in here. Guys, fellas, process what was just said. That maybe the most important thing is that concept, the absolute most biggest, greatest version and optimized, part of yourself, and then giving that fully to the world. Man, money and influence and impact has to follow that. So I want to keep digging into that. One big question that was asked, Joe, we got a couple here, but one of the guys knows that you do some coaching. You're a Brave coach with us. What's one of your favorite, just like principles, mindsets? You've received it. You're teaching it. Like when you think about like coaching a fella, what really comes to mind is something that you really love to impart?
Yeah. I mean, it is every day of the week is 20-mile march. And I know that's the foundation, but when we can continue to reorient back to that, I spent a day of planning yesterday all through the idea of 20-mile march. Yes, I'm writing a book. And what does that mean? I need to write 2 hours every single day. So it's on the calendar now. It's non-negotiable. I want to have close friendships. So I have my list of friends and I pick who am I calling on every single day. And so it's I just had a call with a guy I coach who I absolutely love. And it was just like, hey, I want to be able to speak more boldly into the lives of one of the guys that I work with, one of the partners of my firm. I said, okay, well, what about this? What if you had a 10-minute walk with him every day and started to build up trust slowly every day? And then after a few months, you have that. He knows that you care for his good. You have trust in a relationship established, and you're able to speak in more truthfully on the things that are really important to you. So it's funny how that's what I always come back to is, okay, am I 20-mile marching this? I even said to my brother the other day, I was talking about who gets coached by the Brave group. I said something about some big thing. He was like, well, have you 20-mile marched it? And I was like, dadgummit, nope. That is the thing. And inherent in the 20-mile march is reducing these big bursts of excitement, instead getting them to where they're sustainable over time. Yeah. So I love that one.
Consistency over motivation, right? I will be consistent. Little by little steps are the way. And sometimes seemingly insignificant steps that equal progress, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
think it's Bill Gates. I think it's Bill Gates who said, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 5, or something like that. So yeah, let's just commit to it over the long haul.
And you see guys that have built something great, and it's like, oh yeah. I said that the other day. Someone's like, do you expect all this? And I was like, yeah. Yes. Had high aspirations. I did not expect it to take 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
That threw me off. But here we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, well worth it. Okay, next question. Going back to phones as the digital expert, we recognize kind of the thorns that they can be, but when and how do you recommend using the phone so it doesn't become the choking agent?
Yeah. I mean, this is within I'll speak specifically to your home. Again, we have to be strategic. In your home, every one of us must establish sacred times and sacred places where we've just said, these are phone-free times and places. So when you think about a phone-free time, and this isn't necessarily on your phone, but this is on date nights, for example, all of us need to be having date nights. When you go into a date night, if you have young kids, you may think like, oh, I actually kind of need to be reachable by the babysitter. If that's you, I understand our phones are necessary at times. If that's you, what you do when you get to the table, I call the date night phone swap. You literally swap phones with your spouse. So here's what happens. You both have a camera in case you want to take a selfie. You can be accessible if the babysitter needs you, and you're not going to doom scroll your spouse's phone. So you find yourself in a way, again, environment stronger than willpower. So you find yourself in a place where you're able to fully engage with them without the distraction of your phone, without that thing that pulls at you. Because how many of us have done this? How many of us have seen people do this, where they're all dressed up at a restaurant and we're just kind of sitting there scrolling and it's just silliness. So that's one. Or if you can leave your phone in the truck, that's even better. So do that. So that would be an example of a sacred time. Sacred time could also be, and I love this one, I'd highly encourage this, family movie nights are a great time for phone-free times where you just put them in the other room. The studies show that the only way to reduce your screen time is for it to be away from your body and out of your visual field of sight. So you really just can't have it with you. That's because 89% of smartphone usage is self-initiated. So it's not our notifications, it's us grabbing our phones. But when they're away from us, you're just not going to grab them. You're not able to grab them. So family movie night, how about watching a family movie without a second screen? So those are sacred times. Sacred places, dinner table is a great sacred place. Just say, hey, they just never get here to the table. Sacred places could be your child's bedroom. It could be the bed in your bedroom. And the cool thing on all of this is that we have the authority to determine what's sacred in our lives. So you get to name it. For everybody here, I would encourage you, go to your spouse tonight and say, I heard this concept I really like. Can we align on one of these? Spouses may be, so again, a lot of us will try to go do three or four at a time. Let's just start with one. Make it, alignment with your spouse is massive here. The number one reason why people fall off habits when it comes to phones in their home is they're not aligned with their spouse. So don't mandate it. We can't mandate something until we model it ourselves. Yeah. So let's begin to model it in our homes. And then let's begin to align with our spouses, find one of those, one sacred time, one sacred place, establish that as the culture in your home. By the way, if your kids don't have phones yet, they're going to love it because they're going to get more of your attention. And then build on that, build on that, build on that, build on that. We all know culture takes time. So 20-mile march of this, and then over time, you're going to find that the culture of your home changes just because of the way that you manage your devices in your home.
Come on. Okay, I'm gonna stay there for a minute because it would be a shame not to expose everybody here to the success and the beauty of your family. Yeah, your kids are great. Kristen is great. You have done an unbelievable job as dad and as husband. Your kids are unbelievably open with you. You know, any part of that you want to share. I mean, Harrison being great about interacting with the girl and coming home and telling dad about it. You know, I mean, it really is powerful. So I'm going to let you take it. We got a minute or two left. Speak to the success you've had in creating and cultivating an unbelievable family atmosphere because you're great at it.
Well, thank you. And my wife is really good about being non-reactive to, the kids say something growing up and she just absorbs it. They talk about somebody having 2 moms or something like that. And she's just like, oh, great. It's that kind of stuff where she just absorbs it. They can't shock her type of thing. And so that's been it's been fun to watch her operate. And we've always just kind of, right or wrong, we've always just kind of treated our kids like little adults in the way that we talk to them. Obviously, age appropriate stuff, but being very open with things like sex and alcohol. And I quit drinking 3 years ago because I got way overserved one night. And my kids saw me. They saw that I had way too much to drink, and I just decided that, hey, this is the moment that there's no better reaction here than to just stopping alcohol, because this is what we talk about. And so being willing to, again, appropriately show where we fall short. And then they say in every relationship, the most important part is repair. So being willing to be open, being willing to apologize, being willing to own your mistakes, and then repair those moments with your kids, I think has been a piece of it. And then we were probably first 10 to 12 years were pretty structured in our home. We kept things pretty tight. And then we found that initial investment, it allowed us to transition back off a little bit more, allow them to make their own decisions. And right now my focus, I watched Harrison just absolutely crap the bed yesterday in a tennis match. He was terrible, fellas. But I knew in my mind, I'm not coach, I'm cheerleader. So you just have to be that constant cognizance of, where am I in stage? What's my end goal here? That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot to encapsulate. I hope we've done some things well. We'll find out over time, but it does seem like we've got a couple good ones.
Well, it was fast and furious. There's nobody better at communicating clearly on in-depth, kind of buck wild concepts that we all want to grab and run with. So, Joey, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on here. Here's the reality, fellas. From this moment forward, man, we win. It's who we are. It's what we do. And I want you to live this life at such a high level. And remember, consistency creates confidence. Okay, that's the reality. There's a lot of stuff that was covered. We went through a lot of different areas and topics. But in all of it, I'm going to bring it back to, let's be consistent, stable men. And if we'll take ground every day, we're going to love the fruit that comes from it. That's how we roll. Got your back, fellas. Man, thanks for tuning in. We'll do this again in 1 month. Anything you need, man, reach out. Let us know. We got your back. Go get them.